It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for November 17th, 2022. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Blizzard is pulling out of China for now, and Volition is getting paired up with a different studio. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jan Ochoa. Jan, how are you doing?
Hanging in there, hanging and clanging, as I always say.
Yes, absolutely. It's been your catchphrase these past many years, hanging and clanging. Yep. I'm glad we can clang hard today together.
Clang
hard.
As they said at the end of Grease, chang, chang, clangity, clang to clang. Yep.
That's what they say. Yeah, it's snowing here, and I'm very excited, Jan. It's that time of year. I'm ready for the snow. No like blizzards yet or anything like that. I really don't know what to expect from Lake Erie. What's Lake Erie going to do to me? What's lake effect snow look like? I have no idea. I'm expecting
I have no idea how to deal with snow.
It's really you just go slower. Everything goes slower.
Okay.
Most people don't do that, but you should. You should just go slower. Yeah.
Is it like witches, like in Hocus Pocus, where I just throw salt at it? I've read that. I should throw salt at snow, or is that no?
Throw salt at it, although that in Colorado they wouldn't do that because that harms the land. So they would use basically a thing like kitty litter, I guess, like a lot, or maybe it was just sand. I think they just used a sand mixture. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Weird, I guess. Cool. I guess that it worked fine. Honestly, the sun would come out the next day, everything would melt. Here, we're going to get snow, and it's just going to be snow and slush for 6 months, I think. But hey, I like it. I don't care. I'm ready for it.
All right.
And then, if you ever get snow in a place that's not used to it, then you just don't deal with it. You stay inside because it's going to be chaos. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get into this show. No enough snow talk because I could do it all day. I should start a snow-based podcast. That's where I should really be.
That's why you like snow runners so much, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Get me those tires through that snow. Make some muddy snow. Hell yeah. All right. Before we get into the show, let's talk about what we do here. Most weekdays, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I will get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you were watching live on Twitch, hello Twitch. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. Shout out to the RSS homies out there. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Blizzard is suspending some of its games in China as it ends a publishing deal with NetEase. This posted last night from Blizzard to their investors, saying Blizzard Entertainment plans to suspend game services in mainland China in January as its licensing agreement with Chinese gaming company NetEase is set to expire. That's going to happen on January 23rd, but Blizzard is ending new sales of its games in the coming days, it says, quote, the coming days. Blizzard and NetEase had operated in partnership since 2008, whereby NetEase published popular Blizzard titles such as World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and Overwatch in China. The termination of the licensing agreement is expected to negatively impact NetEase and Activision Blizzard's total revenue for 2023. According to Daiwa Capital Markets, NetEase may lose an estimated 7%, whereas Activision Blizzard anticipates a 3% drop. Blizzard says it's looking for a new publishing partner in the highly lucrative Chinese market. This is from Mike Ibarra, who is the president of Blizzard now. We're immensely grateful for the passion of our Chinese community, that our Chinese community has shown throughout the nearly 20 years we've been bringing games to China through NetEase and other partners. Their enthusiasm and creativity inspires us, and we are looking for alternatives to bring our games back to players in China. This is a strange thing because really to get into China, no matter how big you are, you can't just go there and start selling your games. You can't go there and set up shop. You have to go through a local partner as part of the way the protectionist economy is set up in China. And NetEase has benefited off that for a very long time. It sounds like what's happening here is that NetEase has some bigger demands to keep that deal going, and it involves IP ownership and or how maybe letting NetEase use more of the IP in ways that Activision Blizzard seems uncomfortable with. And so Activision Blizzard's just saying, listen, we're going to walk away from the table. We're going to stand up and walk away. There are probably some other options for putting these games out, but really, NetEase, Tencent, those are really your only hopes for getting a lot of these games put out. And honestly, by pulling out of the market, I don't know how it would work when it comes to getting the license to operate in China, because every game has to get approved by the government. If they pull out, do those games need to get reapproved? That could be a process that takes literally years at this point. Now, Blizzard games are beloved in China, so maybe the hope is, well, maybe we can get fast-tracked or grandfathered in or one way or the other. But overall here, I mean, are you surprised that Blizzard is kind of playing hardball?
Yeah, actually, just knowing how big specifically the World of Warcraft is in China, I don't know if it has maintained popularity over the years. Oops, sorry, Grubb, if that messes up your framing.
No, you're good.
But yeah, I just know that China's a gigantic audience, not just for video games. And as you mentioned, it is such an arduous process to get stuff there that it seems odd. Now, it's interesting that you brought up that NetEase may want more control, because I was thinking that Blizzard Activision is choosing to end this relationship because they're hoping that the Microsoft deal goes through and that Microsoft becomes that new partner or just that new publishing arm in China. And I don't know what Microsoft's presence in China is like at all, but that seems like the move that they may be going for. Maybe that's not the actual motivations. So are they ending like services in China as well? So you can't play WoW after this deal ends?
Well, I mean, here's how the NetEase president put it, and he kind of illustrates, the answer to that question there. He blasts Activision Blizzard jerk. He doesn't name the jerk. He just says there's an Activision Blizzard quote unquote jerk for China license fallout. This comes from Chris Moyes at Destructoid. Speaking very candidly on LinkedIn, Simon Zhu, president of global investment and partnership at NetEase Games, spoke of his disappointment with the separation, stating that he himself has spent 10,000 hours playing Blizzard games and claiming that he was heartbroken not only for himself, but for all of the players who lived in those worlds. He goes on to say that he's not going to be able to access his account anymore. So these things are just getting pulled out. Like, it's not just like they're not going to stop selling new games. These things that have worked for decades will stop working. So, and it's because, at least according to Simon Zhu, of a jerk over at Activision Blizzard. Here's the quote. As a gamer who spent 10,000 hours in the world of Azeroth, StarCraft, and Overwatch, I feel so heartbroken as I will no longer have the access to my account and memories next year. One day, when what has happened behind the scenes can be told, developers and gamers will have a whole new level of understanding of how much damage a jerk can make. Feel terrible for players who lived in those worlds. Yeah, okay, I get it. I bet there was someone at Activision Blizzard's like, no, we're not going to, agree to your terms, and that's frustrating for a negotiator like Zhu. Sure, it is. I think it's just, maybe it's just perspective, but from like the outside looking in, the only reason NetEase has this deal in the first place is because of the rules, the regulations in China. Like if Blizzard could put these games out themselves, they would have done that. And so to kind of be like, hey, we're the good guys here. Activision Blizzard's the bad guys, and so whatever. There's no good guys, and this is all just business. But it's still just a weird position to take. I wonder if they probably can't operate thinking that Microsoft's going to come and be able to handle this yet. Like that they have to do everything based on the assumption that this is business as usual. But maybe it gives them a little bit more confidence when they are saying, hey, we can pull out here. We do have something in our back pocket that is probably going to be able to back us up. And that maybe that's happening on a subconscious level. Maybe it's like, they're kind of whispers to each other like, listen, we can afford to stand up from the table and say no to this money, even more so than NetEase can. NetEase losing 7%. Activision Blizzard losing all of China for the most part. There are a couple games, right? There's a couple of games that will still operate there. I think one of the most recent, I think it's Diablo Immortals, but now I'm thinking maybe that was also covered by this deal. There was another game that had a separate deal and it's going to keep running. But for the most part,
is it Call of Duty Mobile?
Maybe it's Call of Duty Mobile, something like that. But World of Warcraft is big in China. It's not as big with the younger generation. They've got a whole new crop of homegrown games that have a distinct advantage of just being easily approved everywhere in that country. But gamers that have been playing in China for 20 years have grown up with World of Warcraft and Blizzard's games, and they are still beloved there. But only 3% of Activision Blizzard's sales are going to be hurt. And so it's like, listen, they think maybe we can tighten the screws on NetEase at a time when the gaming business in China is less predictable and is kind of volatile because of the regulations from the government. Even these companies that do have an easier time getting approval in China to release their games, because they're Chinese domestic companies, they still have to go through a long process where many of their games are taking years to get approved for release. And it's like, okay, so they are looking for ways to bring in money from the outside with partnerships or by releasing their games elsewhere. And this is a huge setback for NetEase. So I would assume that if one party is going to come to the other in the future, it's probably going to be NetEase softening their position. But who knows? That's just a guess.
Yeah, this could be a huge bargaining chip that Activision Blizzard is trying to do, and just strong arm their way into a more beneficial deal with NetEase. If not trying to wait out the possibility of being acquired by Microsoft to maybe have like a more temporary deal with NetEase, maybe, because since 2008, Jesus Christ, that is a very long time to have like any type of business deal going on, that I could see maybe they want to put it to, hey, instead of that many years or an ongoing type of thing, we'll re-up it for the next 2 years until maybe this merger could happen, and then we can be more, I don't want to say independent, but represent themselves in China versus having to go through a second party, and then they just get all the profits that way. I do think this is a little bit of emotional manipulation by the NetEase president. Because no party in this is completely guilt-free, because him losing 7% of profit is going to be huge for that company in China. I don't know the rest of NetEase's dealings besides being that partner for Activision Blizzard, but that's huge. And then I do think, because of the, not stranglehold, but the presence that Blizzard games have in China, that if Activision Blizzard wanted to pursue some other option, that it's not going to be fast tracked, but it may be, wouldn't be put on the back burner. It'd at least be in front of more eyes rather than being dismissed or taking more time because of its existing presence in China.
Yeah, and I think that these companies are probably hesitant. Well, I mean, especially Activision Blizzard probably is hesitant about making another long-term agreement, and because these things are changing so rapidly and things are so uncertain, and both with the Microsoft acquisition and with the reality on the ground of releasing games in China, and so that probably increased tensions in the discussions. And I would imagine Activision Blizzard's come in and be like, listen, we can maybe re-up the same deal for a year at a time, something along those lines. And NetEase is probably like, no, we need more time, more money, and more control. And it's like, okay, those things were never going to see eye to eye, were they? There was just going to be a situation where they were going to end up either just re-up into something very temporary, or this was going to happen. And this seemed like inevitable as well. I do think you're right that once Microsoft is in there, they are going to want to reassess all of these ongoing deals. And I think Microsoft probably would have other ways into China, even though it will be just as difficult for them as most other major, like Facebook and Apple and Google have all had their issues trying to break into China in multiple ways. So, yeah. All right, let's see here. Let's move on here to another Activision Blizzard story. Overwatch 2 is selling a $10 Mei skin, even though she's unplayable in the game as of right now. At least that was true this morning. They're putting out an update today. We'll get into it. This comes from Isaiah Colbert over at Kotaku. Blizzard released a really cool new epic skin for Mei, which I have right here. Let me bring it up right now. It's even frosting over for her. The only problem is that players can't see what her skin looks like because she's been temporarily taken out of the game. Mei has been missing since Halloween, when Blizzard announced it would be temporarily disabling Mei to address a bug with her ice wall ability that allowed her heroes to reach unintended locations. Mei mains were told they would have their Ice Queen back with the release of Overwatch 2's November 15th patch update, but that's been delayed, and it was delayed mere hours before it was released. It is now coming out today. despite that, they did put out this $10 skin that you can buy. You just can't actually go use it or really even look at it within the game.
You can't even look at it.
Right, because I don't think you can even access May from the menu to like go through all of her skins. At least that's the way Isaiah is explaining it here in his story, which sounds right. But you can see it here. Here's a tweet about it, so everyone can see it now. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. It's a pretty good looking skin. It's a shame that this game continues to have such weird issues, like a character having to be disabled. But you know, I talked to Lucy about this yesterday. She's still like, I'm happy to go play that game. And I know Mike, who's a big Overwatch fan, he was just playing the other night while we were talking. And he's like, I'm playing 2 games. Fans of Overwatch do still seem to be pretty happy with the fundamental gameplay of that game, and all of these, peripheral issues and some things that are affecting the core gameplay. Obviously, like a hero being unable to be accessed. Those hurt the overall experience, but also there are 37 other heroes or 36 other heroes that you can play as. So maybe it doesn't hurt as much as it would have if something like this would have happened with Overwatch 1. The game is bigger, and so maybe it gets a little bit more leeway for being a slightly more of a mess. Although it doesn't feel like the mess is because the game is bigger now than it was then. It just feels like Activision Blizzard is in a rougher place than it was when it released Overwatch 1, right?
Yeah, I feel like this is a bigger problem for people looking in on the outside rather than the existing player base. If Lucy exactly right. and Mike are completely content with just moving on and just picking different characters, or maybe they just don't even play as May, then I guess it's less of a problem for the existing Overwatch 2 player base. I think this becomes an issue with, and it sounds like they're going to reintroduce May fairly soon with this update, but I think it just becomes an issue with growth, because eventually the Overwatch 2 bubble will burst, and I'm curious to see as to how many players they can sustain, or just returning Overwatch 1 players versus people that have been introduced to Overwatch as a franchise because of Overwatch 2. And then I don't know, maybe this is all intentional. Maybe they broke May on purpose to make her popular for the winter months.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all propaganda.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder. I've always loved May, and I love playing as her. So yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, when she's back, maybe I'll get back in there and mess around myself. So you're onto something. I think you're onto something.
She reminds me of the Pyro character from TF2, but with ice.
Yes, exactly. All right, let's move on to these other stories. I got a couple things dropping in chat from, and thanks for chat for dropping those news stories in there for me. We'll get to those after a couple of these. Embracer braces for a world embracing chaos. This comes from Eddie McHugh at GameSpot. Embracer Group, the Swedish gaming giant, has commented on the state of the world and how economic, geopolitical, and social issues could negatively affect the company's business outlook. The company says it will conduct a business review, with one possible outcome being to spin off some of its many subsidiaries and take advantage of a Swedish tax law provision in the process. In a section of its latest earnings briefing titled "Turbulent Times Create New Opportunities," CEO Lars Wingefors said he remains confident in the company's decentralized operating model, with teams and studios spread around the world. However, he spoke candidly about how things could go south. And this will quote, "The world has changed for the worse in many areas, becoming darker in recent months. We need to adapt to the challenges of geopolitical and social issues around the world and the new macroeconomic reality," he said, noting that the increased cost of capital will impact Embracer's business. So, yeah, go ahead, please.
Listen here, buddy. If the world is becoming darker, it's because in the United States it was daylight savings time. So
that's right. Exactly.
That's why.
So when I get done with work now, I go outside and it's already dark. That's what's happening. Wingefors, get with the program.
Exactly. Ease up, buddy. Jeez.
A couple things here. There's more to the quote, more to this story, and some other things that are happening in Embracer. But boy, it's weird to be like, hey, we are acquiring everything, and now we're gonna start spinning off things. Like that's weird. And also it's like to be fair though, in his defense, capital is going to become more expensive, and the whole thing, the thing that was fueling everything that was happening with Embracer for the last several years is that interest rates were really low. The borrowing money to acquire video game companies in Europe was a lot cheaper than it was to do that same basic thing in other places, and so he was doing this sort of acquisition arbitrage where, hey, we can borrow money in Europe where it's really, really cheap. And then we can go acquire things in other places from other countries that would have a hard time, where companies would have a harder time making those same acquisitions over there. And so we can basically take the value from them, bring it over to us, and it's worth more to us than it is to them. It's basically what was happening. And that has changed for the most part because obviously now we are in a different global market reality, and interest rates are going up, and inflation has made a lot of this not make as much sense. And so, yeah, I could see Embracer be like, hey, the strategy of acquisition that we were doing before doesn't work, so now we need a new one. It's just weird that the new one might be to spin things off. And so, let's see. Let's continue with this statement from him. The adjustments in the cost of capital will, compared to before, require current and future investments, both organic and inorganic, to have a higher minimum hurdle with a safety margin to justify the capital allocation. We need to continue our sharp focus on the execution of our ongoing business around the world. Embracer is now conducting that aforementioned special review of its business to navigate the new market conditions with the aim of making sure it can maximize long-term shareholder value creation. Basically, what's happening here is that there's this Swedish tax policy called Lex AC. And in certain circumstances, if you have a large company and you begin spinning off smaller parts of it, you might get a beneficial tax treatment. They are looking into this now, and they're saying it may be deemed to be the best for its employees, create higher shareholder value, and improve its overall strategic flexibility, but they still have yet to determine if they are going to go through with it or not. So just a weird situation. It's just a kind of flipped on its head. You know, we were saying just a couple of weeks ago, really, Embracer is going to keep embracing everything, and now it's pushing things away. It's odd.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there should have been a business analyst somewhere within that company to tell them to forecast, parts of the world are heading into a recession. Currency is not going to be as strong as it once was. I feel like even a couple months ago, you could have looked at the geopolitical climate of the world and seen this happening. This feels like, I don't know, when someone makes a bunch of bets, hoping that out of those 30 bets, one of them will pay off and get them the jackpot, versus making calculated decisions.
It definitely feels that way. Yeah.
It just is.
It's a thing where the market conditions were so ripe for go. Make as many acquisitions now as you possibly can. Developers are undervalued, and money is easy to get your hands on, and interest rates that you're going to be paying on that stuff, basically the money that these developers are going to make from profits will pay for themselves, and other companies are going to start making these acquisitions. So we need to act before they do. And so, like, there was just all these indicators telling these companies that this was the right thing to do until it wasn't. And now suddenly it's like they have to deal with the reality of we did go, but we didn't necessarily, we were reacting to the market conditions, and we had no plan for what happens if those market conditions change. So we're gonna have to figure that out now. And I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll figure it out. But it does seem weird that it's like, okay, you didn't really have an idea of what to do when things weren't the way that they were. It was obviously temporary. Things were going to change. Now you have to figure it out. Now, one of the things they are doing, this is another headline, Saints Row dev merging with Gearbox after new game's lukewarm reviews. This comes from Eddie McCoo at GameSpot. Volition, the Illinois-based studio that recently launched a Saints Row reboot that garnered a mixed reaction from fans, is merging with Borderlands studio Gearbox. Embracer Group, which owns both Volition and Gearbox, announced that Volition will transition to become a part of Gearbox. The move comes after the Saints Row reboot didn't exactly strike a chord critically, but management at Embracer said the game performed in line with expectations. What those expectations were, however, were not disclosed. Whatever the case, with Volition joining Gearbox, Embracer says it sees a brighter future for Volition. Volition will transition to become a part of Gearbox, which has all the tools, including an experienced management team in the U.S., to create future success at Volition. I don't know. I always want to be hesitant about being like, the status quo is always better. But this still feels like, are we losing something here? Are we losing Volition? Volition did, okay, yeah. I haven't played that new Saints Row. I actually don't have an opinion on it. But obviously it did seem like it didn't do quite as well as it could have, especially in the critical response. And then Agents of Mayhem, obviously, years ago now, but that was like their last big game. A major miss, both critically and commercially. So I get it. They're not on a string of hits. But still, there's something about like, hey, we had Volition, and they could maybe figure out Saints Row eventually. Maybe they were on the path to figuring it out. Give them another chance. Maybe they'll still get that under Gearbox, but to me, it still feels like we're losing something.
Yeah, I don't understand how Gearbox has this much power or sway.
Yeah, it's got to be like Borderlands is a success. It's got to be just that, right? That they got acquired by Embracer, and they're like, well, you're our golden goose because you got Borderlands. And I'm just like, man, if they put out another Borderlands, I don't think people are going to care anymore. But that's just a guess. Yeah.
I mean, we say that, but this could be another instance where, because we are looking on the outside, we have no idea what it is on the ground there. I'm under the assumption that Tiny Tina did well, right, and that Borderlands games continue to do well enough. God knows that they don't strike a chord with me at all recently. But I guess good for Volition. It's despite the missing the landing with Saints Row, I'm at least happy that they can get another chance, perhaps, or that they're not completely being punted on.
Right, they're not being, the studio's not being shut down like that Montreal, Square Enix Montreal mobile studio, and so that's nice. But yeah, it just feels like, okay, Volition was its own thing and was doing interesting games for a very long time, and I love Saints Row the 3rd and 4, and I feel like obviously personnel changes happen, and they're not the same people aren't making the same games anymore. And yet, I still just don't want to lose Volition into this Gearbox machine. If they just end up working on Gearbox's games, then okay, it does feel like rip Volition. That's terrible. But at least I guess they aren't losing their jobs, at least for now.
With how when you think of Gearbox, two things come to mind: it's Borderlands and the magician Randy Pitchford.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think, with the way that Saints Row can occasionally be meta, do you think they will just introduce Randy Pitchford as a character in the next Saints Row game?
Yeah, probably. I think they'll find a way to do it tongue-in-cheek. Like, come into the booth, do some lines for us, and they'll have him read his lines, and then they'll play him out of order. I think that could be really good.
Oh, my God. I'm already seeing it. They're going to do like a Get Out of Hell type of DLC.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be like, oh, people wanted the meta stuff. We're going super meta again. Pitchford. And it's going to be Randy Pitchford as a magician coming in, and he's going to try and save Saints Row.
Yes. And he's going to have a paisley shirt and whitey tighties and a giant dildo bat, probably. Oh, no, he's going to have a giant VHS tape marked not porn on it. It's gonna be very good. You're
gonna have to find Randy Pitchford's magic wands.
Exactly. And he just does the eyebrows thing at you a lot, and it makes you really uncomfortable. So yeah, sounds like a good time.
He's constantly in your car.
Yeah. He's like, hey, you wanna go meet a celebrity? I got a lot of celebrity friends. Let me call them up. Let me call my friends in Hollywood.
Meet me at the Magic Castle. Drive me to the Magic Castle.
All right, let's see here. Two former Square Enix employees have been arrested on suspicion of insider trading. This one just popped off here right before the show. Two former employees of Square Enix have been arrested in Tokyo. Let's see. Japanese tech site Automaton reports that Taizuki Sasaki and Fumiaki Suzuki were arrested for acquiring stock in Japanese developer Aiming shortly before it was announced that it was working on a new Dragon Quest game. The two reportedly purchased around 47 million yen, which is about $336,000, of stock in Aiming. Just before it was publicly confirmed, it was developing mobile title Dragon Quest Tact. Weird. By purchasing the stock before the announcement, the belief is that the pair may have knowingly used insider information in order to later sell the stock again when its value increased. Yeah, it's just traditional insider trading. So yeah. Kind of it's nice to see people get caught for that, I guess. But I also feel like this probably happens all the time, and most people get away with it. I didn't know necessarily that the laws against insider trading applied kind of across the board globally. Maybe Japan just has similar laws to that as the United States.
Yeah, I wonder if the punishment is harsher in Japan versus here, because sometimes folks that get caught inside trading in the U.S. at least just get a slap on the wrist, or they just don't get caught at all. Actually,
Right, exactly. Or yeah, I mean, listen, Martha Stewart got caught, and that's really what matters. We got her in the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Also dropping, let's see, Ubisoft gave us early concept art of the new Splinter Cell. Let's go and bring that up. Take a look at it here. It looks pretty good, but this is, of course, concept art. But if this is what they're going for, I think it's pretty fantastic. It shows like Sam Fisher up in the rafters with his goggles on, looking down at some enemies, and you can tell he can either take them out or continue to sneak past them. Here's a shadowy scene, which is, I think, one of the more promising things about a new Splinter Cell is they can use real-time lighting, which the techniques of that have improved dramatically. And and also, things like OLEDs and high contrast screens, where like you can make the dark parts of the screen really dark, and then with HDR, the light parts of the screen can like really burst, and you can really feel like you're in like legitimate shadow. And I think that's promising too. But yeah, overall, just it looks pretty good. I'm excited about a Splinter Cell remake still. This is a game that I know they've been messing around with, testing around for a long time, and I'm glad that they've decided, hey, we can actually pull this off and make it work.
Yeah. I think the world may be ready for another Splinter Cell. Because just like what you said with TV technology growing, and then ray tracing also becoming a thing. You can really, really play well with like cones of light.
Yes.
Proper actual darkness and the proper colors being displayed and that being conveyed to the audience properly. Yeah. I just hope it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Agreed.
Because I feel like that became a problem after a while. Also bring back Mercs versus Spies. A couple folks were talking about it in the chats here. But I really enjoyed that mode, multiplayer wise.
Yeah, I think it's something that they really, if you're bringing back Splinter Cell, you give Spies versus Mercs another shot. You probably make it a standalone free-to-play mode that launches alongside this. But do that. Yeah, do that. And I think you could sell a ton of skins on there. That could be the silly side of things. Make that real, or make that especially silly. Whereas, the single-player game, I expect to be probably, you make it goofy, fun, action movie stuff. I think the thing I think of now when I think of Sam Fisher is him in one of the more recent Ghost Recon games, showing up as DLC, and they're like, there was another guy, he wore a bandana, and they're like, he's gone too, and he's talking about Snake. He's like, oh no, I'm the only one left. And it's like, well, you're not even really left either, Sam Fisher, but still, it's like it was a funny moment. And I'm like, yeah, go more with that kind of stuff. Make references to Solid Snake in your games more frequently. That's cool.
Go the Hitman route, where they are kind of taking themselves seriously, but they know that there's a silly component to the game.
That's a very good call. I like that a lot. All right, Pentiment wouldn't exist if not for Game Pass, the director claims. This comes from Jose Garcia. This Josh Sawyer, who's the game director for the recently released narrative mystery game Pentiment, confirmed in the most recent episode of the Waypoint Radio podcast that the title would likely have never even been made if not for the existence of Xbox's Game Pass service. I never would have proposed making Pentiment without Game Pass, he put it plainly. Like I literally just wouldn't have done it. I just don't think it would have been possible. The reason for this is that he considered the idea a bit too niche and unusual for the traditional publishing pipeline. Though he'd had the general idea for a game like Pentiment for many years, it was after Xbox's 2018 purchase of Obsidian Entertainment, the development studio, that he was motivated to pitch it. Sawyer considered the title was well suited for Game Pass due to its more niche qualities. Undoubtedly, Pentiment is not your traditional blockbuster action title. It's very much a narrative experience. But he explained that in AAA development environments, making small games for a small profit margin isn't very encouraged. So even if Sawyer's boss over at Obsidian would have supported the project prior to the Xbox days, and this is a quote, it would have been incredibly difficult to get a publisher to pick it up. So he wouldn't have even bothered. And it's like, I think this is all of the promises of Game Pass coming to fruition, where
hell yeah.
From the beginning, it was clear that this was an antidote to a poison that Microsoft had swallowed sometime in the Don Matrick years that definitely carried over to the Phil Spencer years, where they just didn't believe that making games was the key to their success anymore. And so Don Matrick's answer to that was, okay, we will put TV on, we're going to combine, we're going to have an HDMI in so you can connect your cable box to this Xbox. And that's, we know you watch a ton of movies and Netflix on this thing. We're going to put ourselves in between here and there. And that's where we're going to make our money, not games. And
what a dumb fucking idea.
What a dumb fucking idea. And obviously that backfired. And Phil Spencer took over. It's like, okay, well, I mean, games. But guys, I also look at the numbers and I see how you guys play games. So you all play 1,000 hours of Destiny and nothing else. You play nothing fucking else. And
you perverts.
And he's like, so, he's like, I do the same thing. Like, I get it. But then why are we going to go invest in making all these games if you're just going to keep playing Destiny for forever? And I think it occurred to him at that point, and a lot of the people at Microsoft, that, well, I mean, look, how do people do this with movies and music? Subscription service, and that solves what is probably the real problem. The real reason people probably end up playing Destiny for a long time, and only Destiny, is that, they already bought the game, they already have it, their friends are playing, so there's this network effect that's important. And then on top of that, going out and buying another game for $60 that you're uncertain about when you already have a game that you enjoy playing, that's a big ask. But if it's a subscription
100%.
model, you could put something like Pentiment out, and you could invest in making Pentiment, and it is additive. It is no longer trying to compete in this wider market. Instead, it is adding to this one service where every game is just another bullet point, another reason to get it, and nothing really gets in each other's way anymore. At least that's the ideal outlook on it. Obviously, you put a game out on Game Pass, no one touches it. I'm sure that's a problem. But Pentiment seems like it's doing just fine. I think this is exactly the way it should work, right?
Yeah, 100%. And this is, again, looking at it in a very hopeful lens, following that similar Netflix model of like, okay, hey, we're just going to try and saturate the market with as many things as possible. So you want to stay within this ecosystem. And if that winds up giving creators like Josh Sawyer an opportunity to release a smaller game that is not a AAA title, just like how Netflix will acquire smaller films, whether those films are good or not, that still benefits those creators, or at least gets that bullet point on a resume, or a bullet point to the greater catalog of Netflix. And when stuff hits, it's great. But if there's titles that don't hit or underperform, then it isn't as bad because they have all these other products to fall on.
Yes. Yeah. And they all just sort of lift each other up in a way. And it's, and as someone who likes a lot of different kinds of games, this is music to my ears. I had no idea if I was gonna like Pentiment really until I played it. And I get it because of my job, but I think a lot of people will get it and try it because of Game Pass. That'll be the solution for them. And it's like, okay, the whole process is working. And then this is for smaller niche single player games. Obviously, Game Pass also works for bigger multiplayer games where it's okay, we all want to go, we all do play games together. But I'm the one who's sort of the ringleader there, and I'm the one that often gets in a situation where I have to convince my friends to spend money, and that can feel bad when they spend something on they don't like. Game Pass obviously solves that as well. So it's working in a lot of ways, and it's just nice to see. Oh, it also works for those smaller niche single player adventure games.
Totally. Like it definitely helped me convince the boys to pick up Back 4 Blood for a while.
Right. Again, had you all probably paid $60 for whatever, it probably would have been like, okay, we did get some fun out of it, but it's a little bit more of a sting.
Yeah. And additionally, like, just shouts out for Game Pass making games like Pentiment more accessible to a greater audience, because it's just like that Netflix buzz. You hear Squid Games is popping, so then you want to check it out, and you can check it out on something like Game Pass. Again, similar, Citizen Sleeper is not a game that is normally in my wheelhouse. And if I wasn't in this job, I may not have been able to play it. But if I was like hearing the buzz, all the positive reviews, that game is still sitting at like really high on Metacritic, I think. And knowing that it's on Game Pass, it's something I could just check out. I'm like, all right, sick, let's do this.
Yes.
Versus making that initial spend and trying to justify like, oh, is this $20? Is this $40? Is this $60? And now is this $70 worth it? When you can just pay that subscription fee to Game Pass.
Yeah, it's so easy to decide not to spend money, right? It's so easy. Did you be like, I can talk myself into spending money on this thing. The easiest path is just, I'll wait till it's cheaper. I'll wait till I have more money. I'll wait till I have more time, because why would I waste the money on something I don't have time for? It's very easy to do that. But if you take that out of the equation by just having that one time, you have to talk yourself into making becoming a part of the service. It can work.
I also don't want folks to think that we're advertising for Game Pass at all.
I just think it's working.
It's just working. It's a good service that I feel like I am benefiting from constantly. Right. And I don't even have an Xbox. I just have PC Game Pass.
Yeah, for me, it's just I got real bummed out in the middle of the 2010s when it was like looking around, like a lot of these companies obviously don't believe in making games anymore. And it was just nice that Microsoft found an answer for them. I don't think it's been a full answer yet, because we are still waiting for them to really get into the flow of their big AAA games. And a lot of people, that is gaming. And if that stuff's not hitting, they're not going to care about anything we just said. But I have appetites that go beyond there, and they are serving that right now. I mean, Pentiment's one of my favorite games of the year, so nice. I'm feeling pretty happy about it.
Look at my fridge. It's not an Xbox fridge. It's regular.
I mean, listen, I would also recommend getting the PlayStation Plus, the middle tier, because they could put a ton of games on there, and it's basically the same thing without the first party stuff, which is, there's still a lot of great games on there. All right. Oh yeah, Rob Zachney did that interview over at Waypoint. By the way, go listen to that. Also listen to a More Civilized Age, their Star Wars podcast. Jesus Christ,
these motherfuckers, man. Jesus Christ, so stupid when I listen to
man. Them. For real, I'm just like, what? I can't believe they nailed every single thing. All right, Riot Games and Ubisoft team up on machine learning to detect harmful game chat. This comes from Rachel Kaiser at GamesBeat. Ubisoft and Riot Games have teamed up to share machine learning data so they can more easily detect harmful chat in multiplayer games. The quote-unquote Zero Harm in Comms research project is intended to develop a better AI system that can detect toxic behavior, and basically it's working by these two companies sharing their AI models that they developed to do this with each other, so they can sort of mix them together in one super AI detector program. I think it's someone on Twitter pointed out this is like the CIA investigating why crack cocaine was such a big problem in the 80s. It's like, well, Riot, I think we might know why harmful game chat exists. It's because of League of Legends. we know what you've done here. But okay, yeah, they also want to solve it. That's great. And I think AI, machine learning for these kinds of things is probably a big part of the answer. You heard about those farms that Facebook would have of people looking at like disgusting content all day. That's like, it just was mentally wrecking these people. And we can teach machines to do that up until a point. And it's like, okay, we're going to the machine's going to flag it. And then a human comes in at that point, instead of just looking at a endless series of every single picture. That's the most awful thing on the internet. And so I'm like, I think this is mostly probably a pretty good thing, and I would imagine that for Ubisoft and Riot, this is a long-term growth hurdle of we can only get a certain type of person in these games that can withstand toxicity. Yeah, and we need more than that to really grow to the next level, right?
I hope this is them wanting to improve the community rather than just try and get more people in that have been off-put because of said community. I know, like, honestly, like, a toxic chat is part of the reason why I stopped playing League of Legends, is because no matter what tier I was, or what rank I was, or who I was playing with, there would always be some jerk just spewing vitriol for no good reason. Just sore losers, sore winners, sore teammates. That it put me off the game. And I know there's a lot of other folks in my personal life, professional life, that have also felt attacked and targeted because of the toxic chat. So, hey, if this is a step in the right direction, props to them. Also, Jesus Christ, props to not having to have folks just swarmed and thrown into a swamp of toxicity, whether it's content or a chat. Maybe just get rid of it entirely. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's no chat in Marvel Snap. It's just the emotes, right? And a lot of mobile games have done that. And somehow, this one feels even less toxic than some of those other ones. So maybe it's just like the community is not there yet. Maybe it's they're mixing in enough bots that it just feels less, less toxic. But there's something to be said for that as well.
Pinging. Pinging works really well in some games, you know?
Yes, pinging system in Apex Legends, I think, is one of the best inventions in gaming in so long.
Yes.
It solved so many, like, now you don't need a headset, just ping. I don't want to hear you, just tell me where the goddamn gun is.
Yeah.
Samsung Gaming Hub rolls out game streaming to 2021 TVs. This comes from Rachel Kaiser at GamesBeat. Actually, this just got mentioned yesterday by Lucy. She's like, I think they're rolling them out to 2021 TVs. So here we are. Samsung announced that starting next week, it's rolling out support for its gaming hub on older TVs. This means that those who own a 2021 Samsung Smart TV will soon have access to multiple cloud gaming services, including Xbox Cloud and Amazon Luna. I think Luna and Cloud, or Xbox Cloud, these are the only are only on Samsung right now, at least for sure Xbox. So this is like, okay, now a slightly larger number of TVs will support Xbox Cloud gaming natively. And, you know, before it was just like a certain set of models in 2022. So it's growing slowly, but this is just one more step onto hopefully these apps going on all TVs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You would hope so.
I would hope so. I think I'm just hesitant about the stability of set of apps because as someone that has had to set up a smart TV for my parents, it is the most clunkiest thing sometimes.
They crash a lot, right? My TV started crashing a lot. It's frustrating.
Sometimes like the Wi-Fi signals emitting off of a TV will interfere with other devices as well.
Yep.
So it winds up almost being easier to just get a separate top box for a TV like an Apple TV or a Roku stick.
Yeah.
That I hope this is implemented well because then Xbox Cloud could reach a huge chunk of different audiences. I just think it's hilarious that this. I feel like we're all hesitantly hopeful for this. While when Stadia came out, yes, there was that hopefulness, but also it's like, come on, guys, it's Google.
Well,
it's gonna stop.
It was their business model too, right? With Google Stadia, it was like this. Yeah. Like, you mean to buy these games from streaming from the cloud? That's stupid. Like that's just we're not going to do that. And everyone knew that at the time, and I brought it up to them in an interview, and they're like, listen, you buy your games on Steam, and those are just licenses. And I'm like, people do not see it the same way. But I mean, they're not technically not wrong, but it's like they're not going to see it the same way. When they have it installed on a hard drive in a box under their monitor, they feel differently about it. But you know, obviously this is notable because Xbox was working on their own set-top box for streaming games from the cloud, and that they have put that on hold while they try to get the pricing in line. So we're still waiting on that to work out. But in the meantime, they are putting on more TVs.
Yeah.
All right. You can now open Discord voice chat directly from your Xbox. This comes from Grace Benfell at GameSpot. Discord integration launched for Xbox insiders back in July and for all console users in September. But previously, you had to transfer the call from Discord to your console via the Xbox mobile app. Now you can activate chatting directly from the console itself. So basically, for chatting, Discord works the way you would expect it to on Xbox now, and it works for everybody. And I think this is an incredible step forward. We've reached the future, Jan.
Please just make this standard everywhere. Good job, Xbox. Good job, Discord.
Yes,
I just want to be able to talk to the homies no matter where they're at.
Yeah, and not have to be like, okay, now go through your phone and swipe it over there and connect it to your Xbox and all this stuff. It's like, no, just you could do it all on your Xbox. It's just the way, obviously, it should work. Like, okay, before this, when you did have to go through your phone, it was, all right, I guess this is better than nothing, but it wasn't that much better than nothing because talking people into doing things, the thing we were talking about with Game Pass earlier, talking people into doing things is like a big social hurdle. I mean, I don't even bring up things a lot of times to people because I'm like, listen, I'm gonna have to like teach them, and they don't want to have me be their little babysitter while they're doing this stuff. They just want it to work. If this just works the way it should, well, there you go. And also, it's like if you teach them to do this, it's not going to be. This just works the way the other thing worked, Xbox, live chat or whatever. And so it's like they're used to that, and you're teaching them for like the long term. Whereas opposed to like, okay, get out your phone every time. I think people are just more likely to forget that and be like, oh yeah, I got to get on my phone. This is weird, guys. Yeah, and I don't want to deal with that.
I had to convince a buddy to put on 2 headsets for a while because I was convince everyone else, yo, Discord is just easier to talk to folks. You just have to do this, and that. And then he just wound up saying, like, what if I just put my AirPods on over my headphones? Will that work? I'm like, well, yeah, I guess.
That's where we're at.
But thankfully, the homie doesn't have to be the 2-headphone homie anymore. He can
Hell
just
yeah.
have the one headset.
Now he's used to it. Now he's now he's just totally perverted for it. He's like, no, I got to do 2 headsets.
I did this to him. No.
I'm a monster. Lionsgate picks up Streets of Rage movie from the John Wick writer. David Walensky. This comes from David Walensky at GameSpot, excuse me. Sega's movie adaptation of Streets of Rage, written by John Wick's Derek Kolstad, has reportedly found a distributor. According to Deadline, Lionsgate has acquired the project, though it's not yet known when production will start or any casting highlights. This is a movie we heard was happening earlier, but it's like a lot of times that happens and nothing else happens. This is like, okay, another step. Lionsgate is doing this. Jan, I'm a big Streets of Rage fan. Let's make this happen.
Please, I am going to say this. It's going to color my what people think in my taste of movies. I think the John Wick franchise is one of the best modern action franchises and will go down in history as being one one of the best.
I think that most people agree with you, because I'm the opposite. I don't like the John Wick movies, and I think that's going to taint people's the view of my taste in films. But that's not. I just don't like all the lore. I think it gets in the way of the fun stuff for me for the most part. Yes, and I think you could do like taking Streets of Rage and adding lore to that. I kind of like, well, maybe that could work.
Yeah,
maybe cancel Grubb. Grubb is canceled. Exactly. See, I told you. I'll take what was the Tom Cruise action movie where he was played an MP and was chasing after the sniper. I can't remember. No, I can't remember the name of it. I like that movie better than John Wick, though. It's that is a good pedigree to bring to this. Obviously, It's nice to see that. Okay, the news isn't, Derek Kolstad wrote a treatment and that didn't go anywhere, and now he's off the project, and now we're looking for a different writer. It's like, no, that project's still happening, and it's got a distributor, and now the next step is to figure out when production's going to start. I think all of that is very promising. Yeah. Jack Reacher. Thank you. Yes, that's what it was.
Oh, wow. That's okay. All right.
I know.
We don't need to get into it, but I do think, like, if done with the proper care, a Streets of Rage movie could be fantastic.
Yes. I think you would give it a lot of style. You give it a lot of great music. Get Yuzo Koshiro to do the soundtrack and just go. Yeah. I mean, honestly, you just make the soundtrack with the Yamaha sound chip of the Genesis, and you're halfway there. Like, you're kind of halfway there.
Go full 80s, early 90s with it. You know, like the appetite for 80s stuff has maybe waned currently, but you know, people fucking love dirtbag 90s shit right now, and I don't understand it. As someone that grew up in the dirtbag 90s.
Right. I think a lot of period pieces for the 90s don't work because so much culture began happening on the internet, and that's really hard to capture in a movie.
Right.
And so it's like we were gonna go capture the spirit of the 90s. It's really hard to do that on film. I think, though, if you have like this the flagpole to go to, like, oh, this is going to be like Streets of Rage, it's like, well, we can fill in the gaps there and make that work. So I'm hopeful.
Who would they cast in a Streets of Rage movie?
Yeah, that's a tough one. For Axel, right? That's the name of the main punchy guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like in the 80s, it would have been what's his name from Goonies, and the guy that played. Yeah,
that dude. Yes.
I'm bad with names. Ryan Gosling's a good one. I like Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling may be too old now.
Yeah,
sorry to
he
say
is
that.
too old. Give me a live action Bubsy movie, says the criminal Dan Reichert.
You monster.
Tom Holland for all the main characters. I like it. There you go.
Sure,
that works. All right, let's wrap up the news with Japan's physical sales releases numbers for the week. This is for the week of July, or I'm sorry, God, they do their numbers backwards. November 7th through November 13th.
Very confused.
Yes, very confused. Splatoon 3, number one again, another 43,000 copies sold. So far, it's sold 3.3 million copies physically in Japan. Again, it's just a massive number. Tactics Ogre Reborn is new. Oh. This is the Switch version. It sold 36,000, about 37,000 copies there on the Switch. God of War Ragnarok, also new, 29,000 copies. You imagine that has a pretty good digital number as well. And then Sonic Frontiers is 26,000 copies, and that's the Switch version. Tactics Ogre Reborn for the PlayStation 4 added another 12,000 copies, and then Tactics Ogre for the PlayStation 5 added another 7,000. And you can see Sonic Frontiers, PS5, PS4, that's also in the top 10. So you combine those numbers, they actually all, I think both those games end up outselling Splatoon 3. But yeah, Splatoon 3 just on one platform, 43,000 copies. And then for hardware, the Switch OLED model is at 58,000 units sold. That's pretty good. That's about where it is normally. But it was the Switch was recently outsold by the PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 dropping back down. Supply constrained, obviously still. 25,000 units for the PlayStation 5 normal edition, 3,000 for the digital edition. But even when the PlayStation 5 was outselling the Switch, it was at like 55,000. And it's like, there's a lot of overhead there for the PlayStation 5 where it's like, it is, yeah, when supply is there and people can buy it, it's selling a lot. Sometimes it sells the Switch, but it's clearly, even at 55,000, it's not getting up to 100,000 where it easily probably could get there if it had supply. So
has the price increase happened in Japan yet?
Yeah, it happened in the middle of October, I think. Yeah, maybe it was even before that, but yes, it's happened there.
Despite that, wild to see that the sales are so high
Honestly,
given the price constraints.
Sony clearly timed the price increase with releasing the new revision, which then increased supply, and so it's like they really kind of set everyone up for it. The demand was super pent up at that time, and now here's a ton of PlayStation 5s, but it's $50. The equivalent of $50 more expensive in Japan. So yeah. All right, that does it for the news. Let me get here. I got the poll from yesterday. We said, happy birthday, Miyamoto? 72.3% said yes. 7% said no, and I think that's a bold move. 20.7% said do or lower, which, of course, we put in all our polls because of the one time I made a typo. Just one time. And you got to pay for it for the rest of your life. I'm again, happy birthday, Miyamoto. Absolutely.
Didn't get him anything. Sorry.
Yeah. So, we got him this poll, right?
There you go. Here's this poll, Miyamoto.
Let's see. Let's go with. I'm trying to think of a poll for today based on the news. In the meantime, Jan, what do we got going on this week?
We got for the rest of this week. Unfortunately, Grubb, you're going to have to party back up with the Blight Club and continue Grubbsy 3D.
Yes.
I pray for you, sir, my friend, my colleague.
Appreciate it. Thank you so
much. Can make it through this. We also got the voicemail dump truck popping off today with special guest Evil Uno is joining us to take dumps with us. He's gonna power slam all of us through a dump truck, and that's how the match is gonna end. Game S Mornings again tomorrow, popping off. Sekiro Choa should pop off tomorrow. Call of Duty Modern Warfare Warzone 2.0 UPF tomorrow. If I can figure out how to download, and if we can also figure out how to party up with each other, if that can happen. Also tonight, the finale, the season finale of Friday Night Forking. So get your forks out, baby. Guys, please check out the show.
Yes,
It's going to be a great time. Please, guys, please. Gerald, Betty, please.
Gerald, Betty.
I haven't been the same because, every time I go to a store that sells wine, I'm just hanging around the wine part of the store.
Look for the moms. Look for the wine moms.
For the wine moms.
Yeah. On the prowl.
Looking for some narrative continuity here. And also, I will try to do a quick start style stream, a first impression stream tonight of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I don't have my hands on it. But I guess I want to see it. I don't know if we're going to open up the Giant Bomb Gym again. I might have foreclosed that bad boy.
We got to see how you feel. Now, who knows? Maybe get one over again. Maybe this is it.
Good old Jake Dex on GameSpot seems to like it. I trust Jake a lot. So maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay.
That's the poll question, by the way. Are you getting the new Pokemon? Yes, no. You can buy that thing tonight, like Jan's going to do, and then he's going to hop on the stream, I guess. You're going to do that at midnight your time? Is that when it happens?
Whenever it comes out, it might wind up being after forking. We'll see.
Okay. All right. Hopefully. I'm excited to see that. All right, everybody. We are going to go right into Blight Club, so stick around. If you're watching the VOD later, thank you all so much for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Jan, thank you for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Jeff Grubb, for letting me join you.
Bye, everybody. Fade to black.